Third contrarian thought for the evening is somewhat bigger picture, and sort of another way that I use the 0 to 1 concept. I think that when we think about the 21st century, there will be tremendous progress in this century, and I think the two big drivers of progress will be globalization and technology. And I always describe these things as being on very different axes. I sort of always like to draw it as an X and Y diagram, with globalization is on the X-axis, and it involves copying things that work, or going from 1 to N, or horizontal growth. And I think of technology as doing new things, going from 0 to 1, intensive or vertical progress. And by just sort of putting them on different axes, I think it's a good way to underscore how globalization and technology are very different kinds of things in our world. There's a way in which you can think of China as, a place where there's a lot of focus on globalization. California maybe is a place that's more focused on technology, and you have sort of very different kinds of things people do. Copying things works if you care about globalization. It doesn't work nearly as well for something like intensive technological progress. And if we sort of think about the history of the last 200 years, there have been periods of globalization, there have been periods of technology, and they sort of, 1815 to 1914 was a period of, where you had both tremendous globalization and tremendous technological progress. 1914 to globalization went in reverse, trade went down, parts of the world sort of seceded, got cut off in one way or another. Technology continued to progress very, very quickly. 1971, Kissinger goes to China. The last 4 decades have been a period of an enormous reacceleration of globalization, and I would argue a slower period of technological progress, an era in which there has been fast progress in computers, not so fast progress in anything else. I've often described it as a sort of 2-track technological world in which we've had progress in the world of bits, much less progress in the world of atoms. So things like solutions to the energy problem, transportation, various areas of biomedicine, all sorts of areas like this have been much less promising areas to go in the last 4 decades, which have been a period of intense globalization and more limited technological progress. And this sort of shift is reflected in the language we use to describe our world. It would have been, in the 50s or 60s, you would have divided the world into the first world and the third world. The first world was the part of the world that was progressing rapidly technologically. The third world was that part that was sort of permanently screwed up. Today, we would speak of the developed and the developing worlds. The developing world is that part of the world which is copying the developed world and is converging with it. And so this is a pro-globalization, convergence theory of history dichotomy. But it is also implicitly an anti-technological dichotomy, because when we say that we're living in the developed world, we are saying that we're living in that part of the world where nothing new is going to happen, where there's going to be stagnation, and where we can expect tomorrow to look no different from today. And I think we should be pushing back a lot harder on that. We should not accept this notion that we live in the developed world, and we should be asking, once again, the question of how can we develop the developed world? Thank you very much.